Okay, this is the October market report and really covers the first 3 quarters of the year for Southeast Michigan, which is Wayne, Oklahoma, Macomb, Livingston, and St. Clair counties. And the trends we've seen throughout the year have been pretty consistent. Price range dependent, the lower ends of the market, typically that's up to in the $250,000 range. Inventories are still tight. They were tight last in September. They're continuing that trend in October. Sales are actually flat to up just a little bit, mainly because there just aren't enough homes to buy more than anything else. And we're seeing new listings entering the market at a slower pace than last year. So that means inventory is getting tight, and it's really almost less than a 2-month supply of inventory, which is a very tight, from a historical standards, a very tight inventory. You get to the middle market, middle price ranges, which would be $250 up to $500, and it's evening out a little bit, but still inventory shortage. Month supply of inventory is still in the 3-month range, and last year was 4.5, so it's still squeezing. Sales are up, values are up in both categories, both all the way up to $500,000 values are up consistently, and that's because demand is outstripping supply. The pace of demand outstripping supply is slowing. So although there are more buyers in the market than last year, the rate of that growth is slowing down. And we see it most, as we've said all year, in the upper end where inventories actually are starting to rise. Although in the last 30 days, 45 days, we see inventories start to settle back down a little bit. New homes in the upper end coming on the market slowed just a little bit. So although values also were flat, that's the first sign that we were looking at the upper end being the shift in inventories rising quickly, rising ahead of demand was sort of a temporary shift in recoveries. As we recover, they don't recover in a straight line. They kind of roll up and down. So we thought this was a temporary thing. And we at least have 45 days of looking at it that it might be, and that the upper end might settle back into a little more balanced. Overall, however, across all price ranges, all market areas for Southeast Michigan, and really for Michigan as a whole, we're still seeing activity levels much stronger than historical averages. And that really is a function of release of demand from the recession. And we probably will continue to see that into next year. We're looking at where the predictions for this fall and into winter and even into next year. And nationally, most economists are looking at, from a housing standpoint, housing number of homes sold rising 3 to 5%. Michigan, we might be in that range, but probably more likely a little less than that because we were ahead of the rest of the economy in our recovery. So we're probably a little further ahead in the process of settling, and the market will settle a little bit. The interesting thing is that, for the most part, sellers. We've done some surveys, and they found that sellers are underestimating their equity consistently. They've seen their equity tight for so many years that they don't really realize until they go to the marketplace and actually investigate and ask a realtor what my home is worth. They're usually pleasantly surprised. On the other hand, as sellers get ready to sell, we've done surveys, and Quicken Loans actually did a survey on sellers and refinancing individuals, homeowners, perception of value. And for the most part, once people decide to sell, they're overestimating the value of their home. So once they get the information and see how strong the market is, people tend to overestimate. But that's been human nature for 100 years. So that's not unusual for sellers to see that their home is maybe ahead of the value curve of what's going on in the marketplace. But it's not that much. So in general, if you haven't put your home on the market or haven't investigated the value of your home, you're going to be pleasantly surprised of what your home is worth and how much equity is there. Because remember, in these past 8 years since the start of the recession, or the bottom of the recession actually, people have paid off their mortgages, paid down their mortgages, so they've created equity even if the value has stood still. And we're seeing, for the most part, values are, for most areas, in the range of back up to where they were in 2005, which was the peak value. I would say, for the most part, there are a few markets where it's above. Most are just getting there, but certainly by the end of next year, values should probably reach that level. So we'll be back to that long-term trend of value growth. But overall, we're seeing some good things going into the year. I think probably the the momentum of the recession, the release of demand is diminishing, but at the same time our economy has been moving along pretty well. So basic economic demand and excitement and first-time home buyers being able to get mortgages is bringing more of the core interest in home ownership coming back to the marketplace. So those two will probably be an offset. The demand push will settle, but the basic core economic growth of people getting into the marketplace, particularly first-time home buyers, will rise together. So therefore that makes sense that 2017 should probably look a lot like 2016 in terms of homes sold and values increasing, maybe not as much, but still a really stable and steady market for the year. So that's all. Thanks.